Hey, good morning and welcome. How's everyone doing today? Hey, Siddharth, how's it going?
Hey, Sanjeev. It's good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. For everyone else that's joined, welcome back. Hopefully you guys are excited for the final cohort session. We'll get started shortly. We'll give it maybe a couple more minutes for everyone else to join. So we'll just hang out for a couple minutes and then we can go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to welcome you to the fifth and final Golden Kubestronaut Cohort session. My name is Sanjeev Thiagarajan, and I'm joined by...
Hey, guys, this is Siddharth.
And so for this session, we're going to be focusing on two topics, or really it's kind of one topic, but that's going to be GitOps and Argo CD. So we're going to be covering the Certified GitOps Associate exam and the Certified Argo Project Associate exam. And for those of you that don't know, we have Siddharth here, who has he's created the courses for both of those certifications on the KodeKloud platform. So if you have any questions about the exam, any of those topics or technologies, he's the guy to ask. Now, before we get started, I want to just quickly highlight a couple of people on our leaderboard who have successfully achieved their Golden Kubestronaut. So I just wanted to give them a quick shout out. So here we can see we've got Corentin, Sayantan, Alessio, Labesh, and Taichi, who have all successfully completed their Golden Kubestronaut. So congratulations to them. Tremendous amount of work probably goes into that. So happy for them. There's a lot of other people that are getting very close. You can see all of the other people on the leaderboard who are just racking up their certifications. So a lot of people are going to be getting their Golden Kubestronauts as well. So congratulations to everybody, as well as even if you haven't gotten the Golden Kubestronaut, congratulations on any progress that you've made. Now, for those of you that haven't joined or want to follow along in the next cohort session, we've already opened this up, so you can go ahead and register for the January series, and then you can go ahead and start tracking your progress with everyone else in the next cohort session. All right, Kenneth, can you go ahead and share the PowerPoint now? All right, next slide. Right, so as I mentioned, right, for today, we're going to be focusing on Argo CD and GitOps, and focusing on the specific certifications for those two technologies, which is the GitOps Associate exam and the Certified Argo Project Associate exam. So next slide. So our agenda for today, we're going to first start off by going over kind of the basics of GitOps and Argo CD. So we're going to talk about, why were they ultimately created? What is their use case? What problems do they help us solve? How do they help make our lives easier? Once we do that, we can then move on to talking about the two different certifications. So we'll start off with the Certified GitOps Associate exam. And we'll be going over, the different domains that are going to be covered on that exam. We're going to be taking a look at different preparation strategies, tips and tricks, things that'll help you ultimately pass that exam. So we want to try to make it as helpful as possible. And then after that, we'll then do the same thing for the Certified Argo Project Associate exam. So we're going to go over all of the things that you're going to need to know for that exam, as well as any tips and tricks. Following that, we'll go over how you can effectively utilize KodeKloud and our platform to help you pass those certifications, as well as ultimately get the Golden Kubestronaut certification. So we'll go over the different courses and training materials that we have on our platform and show you guys how you can use them step by step to helping you achieve your Golden Kubestronaut and pass those two certifications. And then finally, we're going to have some dedicated time for Q&A. One thing to keep in mind, we did this in the last session. If you have any questions as we're going through the slides or anything like that, I recommend you post those questions to the chat. That way we can have like a full bank of chat of questions, so that once we actually get to the Q&A session, we can just start answering all of those questions as quickly as possible. I find that if we wait and ask for you guys to ask questions at that time, there's usually a bit of a delay. So if you have questions, just ask for it in the chat. We'll have it all saved in our chat history, and then we can just go one by one. All right, and so now Siddharth is going to start talking about GitOps, and he's going to take it over from here.
Yep. Thank you, Sanjeev. Okay, so let's start with why GitOps. So GitOps exists because Kubernetes at scale is hard. Like managing multiple Kubernetes clusters manually fail at scale due to configuration drift, human error, and also about lost auditability. So GitOps solves this by putting Git at the center of the operations. It has many benefits, like it gives you complete auditability, you get instant rollbacks through Git revert, you also get faster and safer deployments via automation, and finally, it also enables self-service via the platform engineering foundation. And as an example, this why GitOps question comes up indirectly within the certified GitOps Associate exam, so don't skip it when you're preparing. Next, moving on to like what is GitOps? So for this GitOps Associate exam, this definition is critical. GitOps is not a product and it's not a CI/CD tool. It provides automated agents which continuously reconciles the live cluster to match the Git declarations. So with the automatic drift correction, the system ensures that only the infrastructure which is defined in the Git exists and it is running. So to sum up GitOps, so GitOps is all about continuous automated reconciliation and not about manual deployments triggered by Git webhooks. So within the GitOps Associate exam, you could expect multiple questions on this topic. Moving on, GitOps has 4 core principles. If you remember nothing else for the GitOps Associate exam, remember these 4 principles, which are the declarative, versioned and immutable, pulled automatically, and the reconciled principles. You should be able to explain each one in plain language and identify them in any scenario-based questions. The KodeKloud's certified GitOps Associate course reinforces this repeatedly using different diagrams and examples. A very common exam trap is mixing up with the traditional CI/CD and GitOps. So GitOps doesn't replace CI. Instead, it complements it. Traditional CI/CD pushes artifacts to the cluster, for which it requires the cluster credentials within the CI environment. Whereas GitOps inverts this. So it allows the CI systems to build images and update the Git manifest files. And then the GitOps operators, which are running inside your Kubernetes clusters, are going to detect this Git changes, pull the manifest files, deploy them automatically. So by doing this, you don't need to expose your cluster credentials outside the cluster, right? So that's the major advantage of GitOps. So within the certification exam, so you can expect questions on this. And to prevent common mistakes, you can always ask yourself, is this about building the software or to reconcile the desired state? Talking about the architecture, so we must understand the component relationship for scenario-based questions, right? So when you talk about Git repository, it is always the single source of truth where you define everything declaratively. And then the Kubernetes cluster is the target environment where you will be applying these changes. You also have this GitOps operator, which are the agents which are running within your clusters, which are going to apply the updates and also monitor the drift. And finally, you have the reconciliation loop, which is going to continuously compare the desired versus the live state, and it's going to correct the difference every few minutes. So talking about security, so by following GitOps, as discussed in the previous slide, the cluster credentials never leave the cluster. So the operator has read-only access to the Git, but it can also, it also has write access only to its own cluster. It can't write to external clusters. It can, but we need to enable it separately. So GitOps benefits help answer why choose this approach questions. So it helps you with enhanced security because no cluster credentials are exposed. It helps you with improved reliability because it's going to automatically detect the drift and helps you with self-healing. It also provides complete observability. So anything you commit to Git, you have the logs which satisfies the compliance. It also provides operational scalability where a single workflow can be, updated across multiple clusters. So these benefits are not just theoretical, so they represent real operational improvements. So talking about the CNCF certified GitOps Associate exam, so it is basically designed to validate that you truly understand GitOps, regardless of the tooling. So you're not expected to configure Argo CD or Flux configurations in detail. And even the KodeKloud's GitOps Certified Associate course mirrors this by focusing on the concept first and not the YAML. So this certification is ideal for Kubernetes users, platform engineers, and the DevOps practitioners. So it basically validates that you can reason about GitOps in scenarios and which does not require any complex YAML writing or tool configurations. So YAML configurations and the architecture comes into the CAPA territory, which we'll talk about it in some time. So talking about the exam domains, the Certified GitOps Associate exam consists of 5 domains. The first one is the GitOps terminology, which defines the core concepts such as the state drift and reconciliation. Then comes the GitOps principles, which outlines the 4 foundational rules like the declarative, versioned, immutability, automatically pulled, and continuously reconciled. Within the related practices domain, it explores the broader ecosystem of methodologies such as DevOps, infrastructure as code, CI/CD, which complements and enables the effective adoption of GitOps. Within the GitOps patterns, it focuses on the release techniques such as canary, blue-green deployments, which apply to the GitOps principles to the real-world scenarios. And finally, within the tooling, it basically categorizes the specific software ecosystem, manifest formats, and the reconciliation engines required to execute the GitOps workflow. So talking about the exam, the questions are distributed across these domains with a strong emphasis on principles and the terminology. You could expect scenario-based multiple choice questions that test your ability to apply the GitOps concepts to realistic situations. So what are you not tested on? So you don't need to write YAML from scratch. You need to read them, yes, but there is no need to memorize and write YAML specifications. You don't need to know any complex tool configurations. You don't need to have any deep Kubernetes internal knowledge because it's not CKA or CKAD exam. And finally, you don't need to have any hands-on troubleshooting experience. All you need to have is conceptual understanding. So I've seen many people over-prepare with Argo CD and Flux tool documentation for this exam. But to be honest, the Certified GitOps Associate exam is all about conceptual clarity over technical depth. So study smart and not hard. So from my actual exam experience, I would like to share a couple of exam tips and tricks. So first, you need to understand why GitOps exists. You need to know the difference between the pull and the push models, and you need to focus on key concepts such as drift detection, continuous reconciliation, desired versus live state. And then you need to practice various scenarios. Most questions describe situations and ask which principle applies. So this is exactly why hands-on mental models like the one which we see in KodeKloud courses matter more than the memorization. And talking about a day before checklist, so you could start off with reviewing the 4 principles until you can explain each one of them in detail. You need to practice the difference between the CI/CD versus the GitOps. You need to identify what is the difference between the pull and the push model, what are the security implications, and what are the differences between them. And the final one is rushed well. The exam is going to test reasoning, which requires mental clarity. So how does KodeKloud prepare you for this Certified GitOps Associate exam? So our course is built directly against the CNCF exam blueprint. We intentionally use the CNCF terminology so nothing feels unfamiliar in the exam. If your goal is to pass the Certified GitOps Associate exam confidently, this course is designed specifically for that outcome. And our course also follows a structured approach, which ensures genuine preparation and not barely passing. So that's about the certified GitOps Associate course. So let me just pause here and go through the course in our portal. Let me quickly share my screen. Just give me one sec. Sanjeev, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Sanjeev, can
Yeah,
you
I
just
can see it
confirm?
now. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so within KodeKloud, let me just go to so we have this prep course, GitOps Certified Associate course. So it has 7 huge modules and it also has 8 labs. So we also focus on hands-on, practice labs. So we have labs with different exercises, and we have different, videos where we talk about, the concepts with various diagrams and examples, which are followed by demos, and then which are followed by labs. And the end of the course, we also have a couple of mock exams which mimic the external certification questions in terms of difficulty and the structure. So this would really help you to understand everything, and there are no surprises for you when you go to the exam, right? So I would recommend you guys to go through this and take it up. So let me jump over to the Argo Associate slide. So let me quickly share the other slide. Yep. Please let me know when you see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it now.
That's great. Thank you. So let's talk about the Argo project first before we go into the CAPA exam or the certification details. So the Argo project is the industry standard for GitOps in production Kubernetes environments, making it a key focus for the CAPA certification. Its widespread adoption by major companies like Adobe, Red Hat, along with its CNCF graduated status, demonstrates its maturity and stability for enterprise use. So Argo provides a comprehensive ecosystem of 4 integrated projects for deployment, workflows, progressive delivery, and event-driven automation. It is supported by a large and active community and extensive documentation. And having proficiency in Argo validated by the CAPA certification represents a highly marketable and practical skill set used by production teams. So talking about the Argo ecosystem, the Argo project is a GitOps toolkit with 4 tools for Kubernetes automation. Together, they offer complete GitOps solutions, including continuous deployment and progressive delivery. So we have Argo CD, which is a continuous deployment tool for applications using the GitOps principles. We have Argo Workflows, which is an orchestration engine for running parallel jobs and complex CI/CD pipelines on Kubernetes. We have Argo Events, which is an event-driven automation tool that triggers workflows from various sources like webhooks or even scheduled changes. And finally, we have Argo Rollouts, which is a controller for progressive delivery, enabling strategies like canary and blue-green deployments. So for the CAPA exam, it is crucial to understand the practical application of each tool, how they work together, and the specific use cases rather than just their definitions. So talking about the CNCF Certified Argo Project Associate, this exam validates your practical skills with Argo tools for implementing GitOps. Unlike the vendor-neutral Certified GitOps Associate exam, CAPA is more focused on specifically on the operational use of the Argo project ecosystem. This certification is ideal for Kubernetes operators, platform engineers, DevOps practitioners who are using Argo ecosystem for the CI/CD and for the event automation. So success in the CAPA exam requires hands-on expertise with real-world configuration, troubleshooting, and the architectural decisions. So talking about the domains, so the CAPA exam spans across all the 4 Argo projects with emphasis on practical application. So Argo CD is around 40% of the exam topics. So it covers application deployments, sync strategies, project management, multi-cluster configuration. Then comes Argo rollouts, which talks about how you could do progressive delivery patterns using canary and blue-green deployments. Along with it, it also talks about how you could do analysis using analysis templates in order to use different metric providers to either scale the deployment or to roll back. And then we have Argo workflows, which provides you with workflow templates such as step, container templates, DAG execution, artifact management, parameter passing, and different reiterate policies. And then we have Argo events, where we'll be exploring about event sources, sensors, triggers, webhook integrations, and connecting events to workflows. So the distribution reflects the real-world usage. Most organizations start with Argo CD for deployments, and they add rollouts for advanced delivery, and then they incorporate workflows and events as they mature. So let me spend a couple of minutes on each of this product. So talking about Argo CD Essentials, so this is the cornerstone of the Argo ecosystem, and it receives the heaviest weight, such as 40%. So we need to have a deep understanding on the Argo CD concepts, and it is non-negotiable for the exam success. So you need to know about applications, which defines the source, destination, and the sync policies. You need to know about projects, which are logical grouping of applications with airbag and many different restrictions. You need to know about the sync strategies like manual, automated, self-healing, pruning. So knowing when to use each is a key differentiator. And then you need to know about the health status, like how Argo CD assesses health, plus a custom health check for different CRDs. So you will be facing questions about troubleshooting out of sync applications, configuring appropriate synchronization policies for different scenarios, and understanding why applications show certain health status. So talking about the Argo CD architecture, you need to understand the component relationship. So you have different components like API servers, repository server, application controller, and Redis. So you need to know what is the work of each of this component. So if you talk about API server, it is the one which exposes the user interface and the API. It manages the repo credentials. And when you talk about the repository server, so that is responsible for cloning the Git repos, generating the Kubernetes manifest like Helm or Customize. When you talk about application controller, it's going to monitor the applications, compare the live with the desired state, detect the drifts, trigger synchronization. And when you talk about Redis, it is the one which caches the report data, application states, so that it reduces the Git operations and improve performance. So a simple exam tip here is, when your troubleshooting question appears within the exam, think about which component handles that function. Is it a synchronization issue, application controller issue, or it might be something related to repository server, right? So let's talk about Argo rollouts. So Argo rollouts basically extends the Kubernetes deployment with advanced deployment strategies. So it provides you with canary deployments, which basically shifts traffic gradually with monitoring and auto rollback if metrics fail. You have the blue-green deployments, which runs both the versions side by side, and you can switch traffic instantly for quick rollbacks. You have analysis and metric, various quality gates using metric providers like Prometheus, Datadog, etc., to automate the success and the rollback decisions. And finally, we have the traffic management, which can integrate with Istio, Linkerd, and other products for precise traffic control. So here, the key distinction is, the rollouts replace the standard deployment with a rollout resource for a declarative lifecycle. Moving on, let's talk about Argo workflows. So Argo workflows provides reusable workflow template definitions for step, DAG, or sequential execution. You need to know the difference between step versus DAG, when to use which one. So you basically use steps for sequential or parallel grouping, and you use DAGs for task dependencies. You also need to know how to pass the data between steps using artifacts via AWS S3, Git, or HTTP. You also need to know how to drive dynamic executions with parameters and variables, passing them as inputs and outputs, within the steps. And talking about some common use cases, you could use Argo workflows for data processing pipelines, machine learning, training jobs, batch jobs, multi-stage builds, and any complex orchestration beyond the basic CI/CD. And finally, talking about Argo events, which are going to provide the event-driven automation, we need to know about 4 things. You need to know about event bus, event sources, sensors, and the triggers. So event sources are basically the one where the event originates, like webhooks, AWS, SQS, Kafka, or any schedules as well. And then we have the sensors, which are going to listen, filter, and transform events, then trigger actions. So triggers are like actions which can start a workflow, or it could also send HTTP request. And finally, we have the event bus, which is a NATS-based system which can connect event sources to the sensors. So it provides reliable event delivery and replay capabilities. So what are you tested within the Certified Argo Project Associate exam? So CAPA is significantly more technical than the GitOps Associate exam. You need practical understanding of configurations, require hands-on troubleshooting, and not just theory. So you need to be comfortable reading manifest files, interpret or identify issues in Argo CD applications, rollouts, workflows, and the event YAML files. You need to be comfortable with the different string strategies and the policies. You need to know when to choose the sync policies and how to troubleshoot them. You need to know the difference between a canary and the blue-green deployment. You need to know how to do traffic splitting and how to do analysis using the analysis template and the analysis run components. And you need to also know about the workflow design, right? So you need to know the difference between step, DAG, container set, workflow YAML files. You need to know how to manage the artifacts and also implement error handling. And finally, you need to also know how to do multi-cluster management using Argo CD, how to set up application set controller, how to deploy a single manifest file across multiple clusters using generators and templates. So talking about the exam reality, so questions feature real YAML snippets for analysis. So hands-on practice is mandatory. So from the exam point of view, so I have a couple of exam tips and tricks. So you need to know Argo CD in and out because it takes the majority of the percentage, around 40%. So spend more time mastering Argo CD. If you had to choose, prioritize Argo CD over others, you need to know about applications, projects, synchronization, policies inside out. And you need to also know the component connections. So you need to understand how Argo CD applications relate to the projects, how rollouts relate to services, and how workflows are related to artifacts. And the third one is learn by doing. So hands-on practice is non-negotiable. You need to deploy, create, and run real resources. And finally, practice troubleshooting. So you need to be ready to diagnose common issues like sync failures, post rollouts, and the artifact errors. And if you want to have a day before checklist, right? So you can start by reviewing the application sync policies and understanding the auto sync implications, even the sync waves and the sync hooks. You can also practice identifying the correct canary versus blue-green scenarios. Ensure you can read workflow DAG definitions understand the difference between event source, sensors, trigger flows, and how they are connected with each other. And you need to rest well because hands-on question requires clarity and focus. So how does KodeKloud prepare you for this certification? So our certified Argo Project Associate course is intentionally lab heavy. You don't just learn what a sync policy is, you see how it behaves. This dramatically reduces surprises in the CAPA exam. Our course also includes practice questions, which are structured like the CAPA exam questions, scenario-based testing operational reasoning. So detailed explanation for both correct and incorrect answers are going to deepen your understanding. So what are the final takeaways? So both the certifications are achievable with the right preparation. The key is structured learning. So you can have a structured learning, hands-on practice, and exam-aligned thinking. That's exactly the gap KodeKloud aims to close with these courses. So what should be your next steps? So you could begin with the KodeKloud Certified GitOps Associate course to build the conceptual foundation. Then you can progress to the Certified Argo Project Associate course for hands-on operational experience. Then you can go ahead and schedule the GitOps Associate exam once concepts feel solid, which can be followed by the Argo Project Associate exam to validate the tool-specific expertise. And finally, don't forget to join our community for the ongoing support and the knowledge sharing. Yep, so I guess we can take up the questions.
Yep. So for anybody that's got any questions, just shoot them into the chat and we'll just try to knock them all out. Mohammed, best of luck on your exam tomorrow. Hopefully you can pass that. All right, let's see. What other questions do we have? So Kafka Talmud is asking or is confirming, is the CGOA mostly concept centric versus, more, deep dive troubleshooting?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yes, Kafka Talmud. Yeah. So the Certified GitOps Associate exam is more on concept wise than hands-on based, right? So you need to be good with the definitions of the GitOps principles. You need to know the difference between canary and the blueprint deployments. So you won't get any questions about, how to configure a deployment with canary releases, but you will be expecting questions on the difference between them. So it's more on the definition than on the hands-on part.
For the slides, I don't know if we're sharing the slides, but the video will be up on YouTube. So all of our sessions are uploaded to YouTube, so you can take a look at them after the live stream. All right. Any other questions, guys? All right, so we have a question here. Does going through Flux help with any of these certifications?
Okay, so I think I'll take that question up. So going through Flux basics should be enough to complete the the Certified GitOps Associate exam. So within the GitOps exam, they basically ask you the difference between Argo CD and Flux. So that small differentiation, if you understand the small differentiation, that should be more than enough. But apart from that, Flux is not required for the certification.
All right, now we have a question about the labs. So do we have any labs covering application linking projects, rollout integration with service mesh like Istio?
Yep, I think we have labs where we will be covering how applications can link with Argo CD projects, how you could restrict, various application-specific stuff using Argo CD projects. So we have exercises in the labs. But talking about rollout integration with service mesh like Istio, we don't have exercises on that specifically, but we'll talk about how to do rollouts using Canary and Blue-Green deployments.
Okay, right, we got a question from Hariam asking about the difference between Flux and Argo.
Yeah, I mean, both are GitOps tools. So both are, I think, CNCF graduated tools. So they both handle how you could deploy your applications following the GitOps principles in different ways. So both are the same tools.
Regarding the pricing, so that should be on the Linux Foundation's website. So the last I checked, I think it was just the default $250, but I could be wrong. But if you want to see the updated pricing, you can go to the website and take a look at the current price for the certifications. Do we cover multi-cluster Argo CD?
Yes. So within the certified Argo CD Argo Project Associate course, we do talk about how you could configure Argo CD for deploying applications in a multi-cluster setup. So we have a couple of, I think, demos and exercises where we cover this part. And also to answer the difference between Flux and Argo CD, I think, which was asked a bit earlier. So as I've mentioned, both are tools which are used for deploying applications following the GitOps principles. So the difference is like the offerings of the tools. So if you talk about Flux, it does not have a good user interface. When compared to Argo CD, it has a good user interface where you could do everything in the user interface itself. If you go to Flux, you need to rely on the CLI for all the heavy lifting.
All right. Any other questions? All right, so we got a question here. Is the KodeKloud course enough for the certification? So, usually, yeah, we try to design our course so that that's really the only resource you need. I'm sure Siddharth can elaborate if he wants to, but that is what we try for.
Yes, Abjit, as we covered in the slides, we mimic the CNCF exam blueprint exactly. So we cover all the topics which are required for the certification. We also have labs which cover the topics with hands-on exercises. And at the end, we also have mock assessment, which mimics the real exam questions, the structure, the difficulty level. So I would confidently say that the KodeKloud courses are enough for the certifications. I think we have another question from Raghu. So the question is, do we have any plans for deep dive on Argo CD course with troubleshooting apart from current courses on CAPA? So I'm not sure what you're looking for. Looking into deep dive, because we have a separate GitOps for GitOps with Argo CD course, where I think we covered Argo CD in depth with various other concepts which were not required for the certification. So I would request you to check out the GitOps with Argo CD course, which is already available in KodeKloud. I think it should be covering the troubleshooting part. So we have done much more over there.
Also, one of the things I forgot to point out is that we do offer a discount. So if you go to the Linux Foundation and you purchase, any one of the certifications, you can use the 30 code, and that's going to give you 30% off any of the certifications. For Riyadh, it looks like you're asking, which one do you think you should go first, or go for first? This is kind of subjective. For me personally, I think the CKAD was a bit easier because you don't have to go into a lot of the internals for the CK, like you did for the CKA. So I prefer starting with that and then building up to the CKA. Other people have said they want to do the other way around, and they found that was helpful. So it really is kind of specific to each person. I just think the CKAD is just a little bit easier, and the troubleshooting scenarios were a little bit easier. So I would probably start with that one. All right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up now. The links to the 2 courses that we mentioned during this session, those are going to be in the description. So if you want to take a look at that, that'll take you to the direct link to those courses. And I just wanted to thank you guys for joining us during this cohort session, as well as all of the other sessions. We will be doing another round of these. So if you want to join in on the next one, definitely stay tuned for any updates on that. All right, I'll see you guys. Thanks for joining, Siddharth.
Yep. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, guys.